Welcome to the Nuclear Snail channel, community Q&A time. Got some interesting questions here, let's just begin. Susanne is asking how to decide which parts of your costume should be distressed. She means by that like physical, mechanical, abrasion, distressing, shredding, especially the seams. So which seams should be distressed mechanically and which should stay as they are with just a bit of weathering. For me, weathering is like the whole thing, the mechanical distressing and the paint and dusting and whatnot. But what she obviously means here, distressed as in like torn, and weathering as in just like, a bit of paint. At least I presume that's what she means. Because for seams, it does indeed make a big difference. Are there parts that should always be distressed? Like the crotch area, which should never be distressed. And here she refers to to my video about pants, where I said that you're best off not mechanically distressing the crotch area of your pants, because that is otherwise really quick to break, especially on the seams. A lot of times it is not really necessary to apply mechanical distressing to your seams specifically. Just consider which parts of your costume will see a lot of bending and tension and whatnot. For example, the elbow, I would not really distress the seams at the elbow. I would not even distress the non-seam area of the elbow too much unless I intend to make a gaping hole there, because that is what it will become over time, even if it's just a tiny hole at the start. So for those areas that you want to make look distressed but do not want to actually functionally break, I suggest doing something like this. And by the way, here is also a good example of seams. Like you can see, the seams of the jacket, the original ones, are really tiny, and you don't really, why even mess with that? It's such a small detail, you will not really see that without a microscope, or without a loupe anyway. But what you can do is add fake repairs, like this. So something like this is really nice, because it doesn't break your structure, but at the same time it looks like there has been repairs. And I could even add some additional, distressing to this piece of leather that I've sewn on top here with these bold, visible stitches, which could or could not use a bit more paint on them. This gives you the best of both worlds. So, as for the areas that should always be distressed, okay, you're using the word distressed for mechanical distressing. The short answer is not really. It really depends on your costume, okay? So, I would say, again, stuff like elbows and knees should have a little bit of distressing, but not at the seams. What I mean by that is, if it's completely pristine, if it's completely unscathed, a lot of times it looks fake, but just try to avoid the seams and try not to tear a gaping hole, because there is quite a lot of difference in levels of mechanical distressing. So I hope this answered the question. I have no idea what you mean by which seams should complement each other and which should not. The focus on the seams, I would say in most cases just give them a little bit of paint and leave the seams alone if you can, unless that area of your costume is unimportant. For example, and I mean unimportant structurally. For example, if I'm dealing with something like this, we have also some seams here, but I could easily go with my wire brush or my dance shoe brush over this seam, and it would not really cause any trouble. Again, unlike the crotch area of your pants. I hope this answers your question sufficiently, also for everyone else wondering about the same thing. So, by the way, you don't need to even add a patch as fake repairs. You could also add just another seam on top of your existing seams, make that more visible if you want to have fancy seams, I guess. Mick is asking how to add uniqueness or memorability to a uniform/group mandated concept. So probably like there is a group on LARP, they have a certain style guide to them, they're supposed to look a certain way, how to make your character more unique. In LARPs, where factions and tribes need cohesion in costume and presentation, like a military group, how would you make one character stand out more than the others by his costume with more than maybe just a different name tag or call sign? So the latter part of your question signals how to make one character stand out. If it's like a leader or someone who has a special role, special meaning, that is actually quite easy. Easier than to make, standard minions stand out compared to each other, but the latter thing works as well. So assuming that the style guide provided is decent, because if the style guide just says, well, yeah, it's like a basic wastelander, well, good luck. Like that could look like anything, or if the style guide mandates that it's an exact uniform without any changes whatsoever, you cannot do really that much. Although I doubt on a post-apocalyptic LARP they would be having it this strict. Even in military movies, like you have, US Marines or whatever, and one of them will wear a shemagh, the other one will have a mustache, especially, because they're wearing helmets, they're wearing the full gear, they look pretty uniform, but they will usually cast people that have kind of a bit different faces, they will give them different facial hair. Someone maybe has some sort of a drawing on their helmet, the famous Born to Kill inscription from one of the famous movies, I forgot one, was it Apocalypse Now? Anyway, there are ways to add personal touches, which is one of the answers to your question. So as far as the concept allows, add your character's personal touches, their personality, maybe they have some specific sort of heritage that they can display visually that is still allowed in the fictional universe. Maybe they have some sort of a story to them or personality trait. For example, like playing cards attached to your helmet, or like some inscriptions. Maybe they have some sort of a in-game religion that they are allowed to display in that fictional military group. Whatever it may be that makes them personal. Maybe they also have some sort of injuries they have sustained. So maybe some sort of a damage to the costume. For example, the Mad Max leather jacket. I actually don't recall, but I think it had a torn arm because it just happened. I don't know exactly, but basically everything that tells a history of this costume being worn by this person. Let's say it was a proper uniform, but then you took shrapnel to the left shoulder and now there is like a big gap there that has been patched over, or a part of your sleeve is missing, whatever like that. A good style guide should allow for both. So they should be recognizable as people from the same faction, but they should still have some possibility to express their characters' personalities. Great question. Echo the Raptor, what are your thoughts or any advice on combining classes? Like instead of creating a character based on one class, making it with multiple classes. So classes obviously like you would have in a computer game, for example, like sniper and medic and mechanic and whatnot. The thing is, yes, you can combine multiple classes, but the more classes you combine, the weaker each one of them becomes. Because you have just as much stuff that you can wear and carry on yourself, on your character. So that means if we make, for example, a specialized doctor that does like nothing else, and since we're in the wasteland and it's dangerous, blah blah blah, maybe they have a pistol or a knife and that's it for self-defense, but usually they don't see action. Or maybe they are in a situation where they can't afford to have just a pistol. Maybe they have some sort of a basic short rifle, but then they have like a big medic backpack and like lots of pouches, lots of bandages, and stuff like that. That will obviously communicate, okay, this is a doctor. Now you could have someone who is a doctor and a sniper, for example. Just have, for example, a big backpack with medical supplies, and on your front you have 50 caliber mags and like a big sniper rifle. That communicates both concepts, right? But if we now start also adding a mechanic into the mix, like it's a doctor, sniper, mechanic, like I think 2 is doable, even if 2 gives you less super focus and intent than a singular focus on singular class or character concept. Anything over 2 would have to go in as sort of a tertiary detail, not to confuse the viewer, because like if you're a doctor and a sniper and a mechanic and a fisherman, like a mutant cow herder and whatever the hell else, well, then guess what? You will have a lot of different tools for a lot of different stuff, and then we're just back to a basic all-arounder wastelander. So the more stuff you combine, the more you move towards the generic general wastelander class, which is not to confuse with just a noob wastelander, which is just like, oh, okay, well, like this is like some person with no profession at all. You could actually pull off a generalist wastelander look that does this and that and maybe emphasize the one or the other aspect, but honestly, to most people I would suggest just focusing on 1, maybe 2 classes and going from there. Like for example, our sniper mechanic doctor could have a small mechanical bag, a large doctor's bag, and a lot of sniper rifle supplies and the rifle itself. Here you go, but you will have to emphasize like the one or the other thing, really. Rusty is asking, what first got you into doing costume work? How long have you been making costumes? What got me first into it was post-apocalyptic LARP. Back then it was Old Town. I think I went 2 times to Old Town, and then I also went to what was formerly known as Fate. Nowadays it's Fallen in Germany. Met the right people who were also doing this kind of stuff, and then I've decided to put my college education in design towards making costumes look kind of cool. And that's when Nuclear Snail Channel was born. It was actually just an experiment at first. I was like, well, I'm just gonna try this, see what happens, like bring out this one YouTube video, the first one on my channel, and people loved it. And back then it was something new, unlike now. So yeah, it just rolled from there. So what got me into it is LARP. And before that, of course, being a post-apocalyptic nerd from the games and movies and stuff like that. And yes, that's it. It's really a decade since the start of the Nuclear Snail Channel. Wow. Allison is asking, what are some awesome but uncommon post-apocalyptic accessories you've made or seen? Whew, that's a tough one, because there is really a lot of uncommon stuff. I can't really answer that, because there is so much cool stuff going around. Motion detector prop thingy that someone recently posted in the Nuclear Snail community group on Facebook comes to mind. I'm just blanking here. I'm just gonna move on to the next question, because probably if I just search through my entire memory and everything I've ever seen, I'll come up with a bunch of stuff, but nothing comes to mind from further back in the past than a week. Lane is asking, some of your favorite/worst experiences after discovering this craft and the culture around it. So let's start with the good. I think the best one is, and that kind of continues my 10 years ago I started this thing that I've answered just now. It's just like back then it was just a handful of people, not really that many, and I was also just getting into it. So just having discovered that there are others who are into this stuff was huge. And then after the channel started gaining popularity and followers, and I've started meeting more and more cool people and stuff, that I was somehow suddenly contributing to the whole thing, and people knew me and were thanking me left and right for doing what I do for the community. And it's kind of like I had been, even before knowing this whole post-apo community and LARP and whatnot stuff even existed, I was kind of dreaming of finding something like this, you know? And then the thing was there, and I was an important part of it, and that was super cool. Knowing that in a lot of countries around the world there are people who are doing this, and I could go visit them, I could go to their events, I could go hang out with them. It makes me feel less alone with my nerdiness in this world, if that makes sense. And I've met a lot of not just like people, like people you know, people you could meet, but like actual real friends. And some of them I've met just for a brief time, and we didn't hang out for years and years, but there is still that friendship bond. It was also a great experience to discover I can actually make commissions for people and they will pay me money for that, and I can make it at least a part of my living. So that was also cool. The worst experience is now, you can see it which way you want. I will not hate you for having a different view than I do. However, I'm right and you're wrong if you disagree with me. But I hate smoking. And in the post-apocalyptic community, it is not a thing that is immersion breaking. I don't think it is, and others don't think it really is. It is still, however, annoying to me and some other people that I hang out with. There is a lot of smoking just going around, like on some LARPs I've been to, on some events, because, you know, lighting a cigarette on a fantasy medieval LARP, it just breaks the immersion. Not a lot of people will do that. Or if they will, they'll go like to the side and whatever. You just get so much less smoke on those events. And it's not like I'm gonna instantly die from someone next to me smoking a cigarette, but it's just, I'm saying, it's a lot of. While it's a great community overall, I know that there is also a lot of bickering, infighting, all the usual stuff that a lot of people have, especially artistic people. So sometimes on the surface it might look like everything is like super great and everyone is super friends, but there are always clans and gangs and cliques and groups and whatnot, and they will get into fighting with each other over some stupid shit, and I try to stay out of that drama as much as possible. Especially creative people will often have disagreements and really harp on those and stuff like that, so it's not all sunshine and flowers with everyone all the time. It's just like any other community anywhere else. So there is that. I mean, think about the metal community, for example, like also the bands like Soulfly and Il Nino were super tight, then they got into an argument, then they made up again, stuff like that. This stuff also happens in this community. And again, my philosophy on it is leave me alone with your drama. I'll take whatever positive vibes you have, but your drama is your problem, not mine. Right, Elliot. Hey Elliot, how are you doing? How to make money from your post-apocalyptic costumes? Is it better to make to order or make than sell with a backlog? What items sell best? Have you ever worked for a TV show or film? I see what you're doing there. You're trying to suggest I come to Canada and work with you. Thanks for that, bro. I'm still too much of a scared person to do that, but thanks for the invitation. And how did you find clients for such a niche thing? And also Karen asks a similar question. How do you decide the price of your finished piece? Could you actually make a living out of this if you did this full time? The answer to all of that is you could make a living out of it. I know people who do make a living out of being a crafter. However, it is a tough job. You are at the mercy of a lot of things and people, especially the platforms. I think a good way to do this is Etsy, which I'm not doing because in my experience it hasn't worked, at least the ways I've tried it. And the way I've done it so far most of the time is making costumes to order. As in, someone comes to me and says, hey, you've done this and that thing, I like that, I want something similar, blah, blah, blah. So far, most of my costumes have been really custom, unique commissions that were not really repeated. And that has worked for me best. For other people, it works great having a backlog and, again, selling on Etsy because there you have a platform and stuff and people find you and so on and so forth. It's not how I have rolled so far, but, you know, maybe I should try both. Have I ever worked for a TV show or a film? Asks Elliot. Well, yes, but not a lot of times. You have worked a lot more for a TV show or film. And how do you find clients for such a niche thing? So since Elliot works in the Vancouver film industry and has worked on like The 100 and Lost in Space and whatnot else, I think he's asking about finding like private people, like private persons, as are mostly my clients. They found me really. Just having a huge social media presence as I do in this niche, that's pretty much it. How do you decide the price of your finished piece? Experience. You just get to know what kind of a price your clients are willing to pay, usually. Come up with solid ideas about what sort of a detailing and quality level you can offer for those prices. And what I usually do is agree on the price beforehand while telling them just like how fancy or it is gonna be with examples from the work I've made before for a rough estimate. I'm not doing this full time, although I am doing this. I also do concept art, graphic design, picture editing. I've made a computer game. I teach at a design school. I do a lot of things with design and a lot of them are freelance, but making costumes is not my single source of income. Karin is also asking if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, what would be the advice you'd give yourself? Whoa, that's... there would be a lot of advice. But one would be waste less time by playing computer games all the time. I wouldn't say don't play at all, that wouldn't work, but I've spent so much time, I wasted so much time as a younger person playing. I also would give myself the advice to learn drawing way earlier, to learn programming, which is something that I'm doing on the side now, by the way. Think there is like really a ton more of advice I would think about, but those would be the ones that come in mind in terms of creativity, being able to do things and career and all of that. Yeah, but again, it would really be a lot. Christian is asking, what are your top 5 favorite Wasteland costumers and makers? It is kind of difficult to pick top 5, but I would like to switch to my computer now and show you one particular Wastelander costumer maker that I think is and will be gaining a lot of traction and that I think is really cool. Nuclear Custom. And if you haven't heard of him yet, well, check out some pictures here. And you might say about this, at least, like, well, that looks kind of semi-okay-ish. What's so great about it? Well, that was one of his first costumes. Now he looks more like this. Or this. Or sometimes this. And I mean, look at those expressions and poses, and like the dude looks like a young character from a series or a movie or a computer game. And he's just, or like a high fashion model for that matter. And he's just constantly developing. And just looking at his pictures, the photography around it, the people that he gathers around him to do this whole hobby, or for him it might and will become a profession if he wants to. It's just awesome. I mean, look at that. It just reminds me of myself when I was younger. I think that's why I like it so much, and what he's doing and his whole vibes. It's just the whole package, that it's not just the costuming, but it's also like everything else he does and the attitude, and like, look how happy he is. It's just cool. So cheers to you, mate. Really makes me happy that people from the next generation are embracing that. And like, yeah, he's not as far as myself or Eric or Luciano or Mark Cordori or Time Vehicle or Evan All or all the other amazing crafters that are out there. which is why I'm not naming like 5, because there is more than 5 and I would have difficulty really making a tier list. But I thought I just gonna make a shout out to this guy, because that is just really a really inspiring person to me. So on that note, I hope you liked the episode, and I will see you in the next one. And until then, have fun crafting, have fun LARPing. If you like my channel, support me on Patreon, it's linked in the video description. And also join the Nuclear Snail community group on Facebook, also linked in the video description. I will see you next time. Hail the snail!